Hello everyone, and welcome back to Player One Start. Well, on today's video, you can probably guess I'm going to unbox and set up and try out my new Xbox Series X. But before we get too far into it, let's go ahead and rewind the clock back a couple of weeks. I'm most likely saying this for future people who watch my videos, but for those of us that are living through it, it comes as no surprise that we have not been able to find any of the next-gen consoles in stores, as many retailers are forcing us to go online for the sales. And after reading about basically fights breaking out in retail stores based on Pokemon cards, I'm assuming that they wanted to avoid this with the next-gen game systems as well. Nevertheless, this has caused a lot of frustration, at least for me specifically, and I've been seeing others post online as well about their frustration on not being able to obtain these consoles. Now, I realize some people have been very vigilant or have software assistance on being able to get when one of these consoles become in stock online. However, in my particular case, where I work a full-time job as well as another part-time job, I do not have the time needed to dedicate resources to getting one of these systems, or at least as much as I would like. Thankfully though, once again, the gaming community online has been very supportive of me during this time, as recently during one of my live streams, there was a user who mentioned that they could help me get an Xbox Series X if I was still interested. After a couple of weeks, I got a message that it was being sent in the mail, and sure enough, it showed up here at my house. So before I go any further, I do want to thank the Experience Share on YouTube for helping me obtain this system. I have no doubt without his assistance, I would not have been able to get this system anytime soon. Now, one reason why I wanted to get an Xbox Series X was not to actually purchase a bunch of physical games. And unless something has changed recently, as the posting of this video, it has actually been revealed that, as we suspected, the game discs released for the Xbox Series X are mostly just for DRM. The game itself still has a lot of data that needs to be downloaded and will not work offline unless you connect your Xbox to an online server. And as a result, I see no point in collecting physical games for this system. I did still want the console that has the disc drive, and that's mainly so I can pop in a backwards compatible disc and be able to play that, so at least it's not going to be totally digital. However, the silver lining is I don't have to purchase a lot of titles digitally either. Many of you may have heard of this service called Game Pass. In fact, it's come up a lot previously on live streams as the reason why I should get an Xbox Series X. Upon subscribing to this service, it unlocks over 100 titles instantly for you to play for your new system. Now, not all of these are next-gen titles, however, a lot of them are good quality titles, and we'll go through those here in a little bit. But not to get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and start unboxing the system. As we take a look at the box, I'll go ahead and describe the differences between this and the Xbox Series S, and why I wanted this console over the other. Unlike the PlayStation 5, where the only difference between the two consoles is a discless console, but on the Series X, it not only has a disk drive, but also has additional CPU power, as well as 16GB of RAM, compared to 10GB of RAM in the Series S. The Series X also comes with 1TB built in, and the Series S had 512GB of storage built in. The graphics card on the Series X is also much more capable than the graphics card on the Series S, although the Series S is not really too much of a slouch either, it just isn't as good as the Series X. Allowing the Series X to be able to produce 8K images, but for my purposes, as I don't have a display that can do that, I will be doing up to 4K only on this system. The Series X also allows me to get backwards compatible games via disc. If I pop the disc in, it will download the backwards compatible version of some of the select titles from previous generations that are backwards compatible. I believe Xbox One games are almost 100% backwards compatible, but the 360 and the Xbox tapers off in terms of backwards compatibility. But for games I want to have the next-gen gaming experience with, that is what I'm going to purchase Game Pass for. I plan on trying it out on a trial basis and seeing what games are offered, and then determining after the end of my trial period whether or not I want to keep it, or just buy the games like I would with any other system. Alright, let's go ahead and bust out the scissors, cut out those tabs here, and open the box. I have to say, this is much more eloquently designed than the PlayStation 5's box-within-a-box concept. It actually creates excitement on how this is packaged with the custom foam cuttings, and everything inside being kind of color coordinated. First thing I got out was the power cord along with the HDMI cable, which I'll need to keep because I'm sure that is the latest standard. I get an Xbox Elite controller, And unpackaging the console itself is also another treat. It's almost like unwrapping a present on Christmas morning. And here we have the Cube Tower. You know, despite its appearance in advertisements, this thing is actually not as big as I thought it would be. Flipping around the back, I can see the power port, as well as the additional SSD upgrade card slot, and the LAN and USB ports, very nice. I do like the way the fan slot looks at the top. I may be a little biased with green being my favorite color. And just like most black boxes, it looks good sitting on its side or standing straight up. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it stand straight up as it's just a bit too wide to still fit on my entertainment center. And because I have to have the PS5 stand up, it's going to add some symmetry, I guess, to the counter. Alright, and this drill looks familiar. It's time to set up the console by selecting my language and where I live, connecting it to the internet, and then I had to go ahead and let it do a whole buttload of updates. And this process did take a while, so I'm going to skip over a couple of them. In fact, the only one I'm showing here is the controller update, and this is sped up, not in real time. But after the controller and the console were both updated, I went ahead and signed in with my Xbox account, and that's where I ran into a problem. It appears that I was not able to upgrade my subscription to Game Pass and redeem that deal like I wanted to. But after an hour and 30 minutes on support chat with Microsoft, they were able to get me set up and I was able to continue with my Xbox. At this point, I will say everything in here is set up almost exactly as it was on my Xbox One. I did notice that was an option during setup to try to move over settings from my Xbox One account, so the menu would look very similar. So I don't know if this is how everyone's experience is going to be, but it definitely helped me out, because as a first-time Xbox user only a couple of years ago, this was very foreign to me. But again, I was not able to use my Xbox right away because I had to download all of the games I wanted off of Game Pass. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to the next day and just try one of the games. Tetris Effect is a tile-matching puzzle video game developed by Japanese studios Monstars and Resonare, and was published by Enhanced Games. This was initially only exclusively for the PlayStation 4 and featured support for the PlayStation VR. However, since its initial release, a Microsoft Windows version that had support for the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive was also released, eventually being released as Tetris Effect Connected, being released for the Xbox One and the Series X and S and Windows 10. As with the original game of Tetris, the player must place tetrominoes into a playfield to complete lines, which are then cleared from the playfield. Tetris Effect adds themes and music across 30 different stages, with gameplay tied to the beat of the music. A new zone mechanic allows players to stop time, allowing the player to clear more than 4 lines at once. The game also includes a metagame leveling system that leads to new challenges for players as they progress. As for my personal experience with this game, I did play this on PlayStation VR back in the day, and I did find it very neat, but it's one of those games where I didn't feel like it really had to be in VR, and I think this version for the Xbox Series X is a good example of that. Having the music tied to the gameplay is a neat concept, and actually keeps me interested in the gameplay, I think, longer than normal Tetris does. And as a lifelong fan of Tetris, I really don't have much to say about this game other than, yep, it's good, and it's everything you can want out of a Tetris game. Moving on with some Xbox Series X and S enhanced titles, Dirt 5 is the next one I'm going to try, and this is a racing video game developed by Codemasters. And I didn't know this until doing some research on this game, that this was the last video game released by Codemasters as an independent company before being acquired by Electronic Arts. But anyway, in terms of my experience with this gaming franchise, this is actually the first game in the series I have ever played, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Thankfully, it turned out to be a very decent racing title. It is a racing game that is focused on off-road driving, with the game mainly focusing on rallycross, ice racing, stadium super trucks, and off-road buggies. Players compete in events in a wide range of locations, namely Arizona, Brazil, China, Greece, Italy, Morocco, Nepal, New York City, Norway, and South Africa. Each location including a dynamic weathering system and different seasons which affect racing. The only part of this game that I've played so far is a narrative-focused career mode that pits the character against another rival driver, voiced by our own Nathan Drake, aka Nolan North. The game also provides some advice via a mentor that gives you tips and tricks along the way. Overall, I did find myself getting addicted to the gameplay style here. The gameplay style strikes a good balance between arcade and realistic racing simulation. However, I will say if you don't like drifting in your racing games, this is not going to be the one for you because you're going to have to do a lot of that on the slick surfaces that this game throws at you. Overall, I think this is going to be one of the games I play more often here on the initial Xbox Game Pass offerings. Well, that is until I downloaded Forza Horizon 4, which, believe it or not, has a lot of similarities to the gameplay style in Dirt 5, but also adds a lot more. This is a previous Xbox One title that has been enhanced to run on the Xbox Series X and S. And although it's the 4th title in the Horizon series, it is the 11th overall installment in the Forza series. Again, as I've only had the Xbox for a short time, I haven't gotten very far into this game, and I've only been able to try the career mode. This game has you racing on all different types of terrain, on-road, off-road, and while racing different vehicles, but again, drifting is another key concept you have to master in this game. Another difference in this game is that the weather patterns will change with the seasons. So you start out racing in summer, and then you go through autumn, winter, spring until you get back to summer again. Each time the seasons change, you are more likely going to encounter different types of weather, which makes the terrain a little bit different to traverse, forcing you to change how you would race through the course. Just like in Dirt 5, I really feel like the arcade elements versus the realistic driving physics strike a good counterbalance in this game. Although I will admit, when I drive through the hub world, I always find myself trying to drive through brick walls or even drive through a bunch of bushes and trees without really much inhibitance, and that is something that did kind of turn me off from the gameplay, at least from expecting a realistic experience. But on the other hand, the video game side of me really liked that, and I actually kind of harkened back to the old Need for Speed games when you could just plow through anything that you really wanted to. But overall, I can't really give an in-depth analysis of this game because I know there's tons of features in this game I have yet to unlock and discover. But again, definitely one I'm going to be playing more often out of the Xbox Series X titles offered on Game Pass, and to tell you the truth, I may be playing this one a bit more than Dirt 5. Again, because you also do street racing in this game as well, which is something I haven't really encountered much in Dirt 5. But in terms of any game that I want to play on an Xbox, it's gotta be Halo. And I don't know if this is part of the porting process, or the fact that I can't really max out the specs in the Xbox Series X due to my TV being the limiting factor, but I wasn't really blown away and impressed with this title. I definitely feel like it's one they had to include, and I definitely appreciate the upgrades, but since I just got done playing through the first Halo on the Xbox One, again, I'm not really able to see a huge difference with my own eyes. I'm sure the Xbox One is either doing 1080 or some other weird resolution, and this one's doing 4K, but again, my capture card is only going to be able to show this at 1080-60. All I can say is that it looked great on Xbox One, and it looks great on the Xbox Series X, and I will definitely be using this console to go through Halo 2, which I don't think I've ever beat before, and revisiting Halo 3 before I play Halo 4 for the first time. Interestingly enough, it's only now that I'm realizing that I've played through Halo 1, 3, and 5, but not 2 and 4. And again, that's just because of years of not owning one of these systems, and so that is all I had access to over the years, I guess. But I guess this will have to hold me over until Halo Infinite releases hopefully later this year. I know that as of this video, they announced in their E3 conference that they do plan to release it in holiday 2021, but again, for me, seeing is believing. Overall, there are many things I like about the Xbox Series X. I'm not really sure I can compare it to the PlayStation 5 yet until I can get more experience with both of these systems, but for now I will say Game Pass is one of the biggest strong motivating factors for me to actually play this system. Because even though in this video I've only been showing you games that are released specifically for the Xbox Series X and the S, but there is also a massive backlog of games to go through for the Xbox 360, the original Xbox, and even Xbox One titles. Not only that, but I did find out in my collection I have a lot of backwards compatible titles that I just haven't gotten to play yet that I am looking forward to trying on this system. If I had any criticism of the console, the first thing was the fact that I had to contact Microsoft support to be able to get my free upgrade or my $1 upgrade to Game Pass. Whereas when I set up the PlayStation 5, that experience was a lot smoother. The only other criticism, I guess, for me is that if you're looking for that next-gen experience with this console, you're going to play a lot of titles on here that are just upscaled or enhanced versions of old titles. And sadly, that's also a criticism of the PlayStation 5 at this moment, because there just aren't that many games being released for these systems, and I know there are several varying factors as to why that is. For example, a lot of people are still having issues getting these consoles, so why release your games now for a smaller audience? Along with production issues that came from everyone having to work from home or even shutting down during the last year and a half. So for me personally, I'm going to be using this system mostly for the next few months, playing through the backlog of games that they have on here, while hopefully they add some more Series X and S games on here for me to try out that provide that full next-gen experience. As from what I can see, most of the ones that are on there now, or at least about half of them, are all indie titles. And while these indie titles offer a unique gameplay experience, most of them are very niche. I mean, they're just not games that appeal to me for the most part. Like the Falconeer here that I'm showing here is kind of like an aerial combat game where you play as a bird. It's just not something I got into. I have no idea how to play Goner 2. I played through this game for about 40 minutes, and I'm able to figure out that I'm able to move the character and get some power-ups and stuff, but I have no idea what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, or what the end objective is. So again, just kind of more obscure from the very beginning. Haven is kind of a neat RPG, which I didn't find myself liking at first, and actually I found myself making fun of it more often because it's more like a couples drama than it is an actual RPG game, but it actually provided some unique and fun gameplay experience before the end, so I actually ended up playing this a little bit more. And there are a ton of games on here I haven't really gotten to show yet, but again, this is just an initial impression video. I hope you guys enjoyed this look at me getting the Xbox Series X, getting it set up, and trying out some of the games on Game Pass for it. If you did, remember to leave a like below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any games that are available on Game Pass that you want me to try out, or think would be good for me to play through, go ahead and leave those in the comments below, and I'll try to check those out as I can. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.